It's pretty real for me. This is the first time that I've done this, especially in front of certain people. So it's extremely hard. But it will give you a little light into what it's like to be in high school and to be going through that and all the stuff that starts not only then but when you're young. Because it doesn't just like she said, she's battled with depression. Depression doesn't start when you're 16 years old. It starts when you're 6 and you've dealt with stuff you're not supposed to see at that age. So I'm just going to start this off with most of mine started at the age of probably 8 or 9. Okay, I lived in a household that was, it was great. I had everything I ever wanted. I got to live on the same street as a bunch of my family members. I got to do everything as a kid I wanted to do, but there was a certain little piece there inserted into my life that I didn't know would have so much reflection on me when I got older. And that little piece is called expectation. Okay? And in that is a certain standard that you have to live up to. And when you do that, and you see that firsthand, because some of you don't see that. Some of you don't have many expectations. Some of you do. Brock, I know you have a lot of expectations. You have to watch your little brother and your sister, and that takes a lot. And not just Brock, but everybody. But expectation is huge when it comes to building courage, trust, self-worth. It's extremely difficult, and mine wasn't only through. I was an athlete. I was that type of person. I played sports 24/7 every day. There was not a day that went by that I wasn't doing something with some type of sport that I played in. And in that standard and expectation, it was most athletes, and I'll just put it, it's like music almost. Most musicians want to be the greatest musician ever. Okay? Well, my athletes are the same way. They want to be the greatest athlete there was. And that was the expectation that I had, not only from someone, but for myself, because I knew if I didn't live to that standard, it would put what they call a stronghold on your life. And a stronghold doesn't just go away, it stays with you until you deal with what happens. So that was part of my childhood, was living up to an expectation. I knew it wasn't for me, it wasn't a standard that I could live up to, because it wasn't me that was living it, okay, it was somebody else. And in that, that has nothing to do with that person, because they didn't see it then like they do now. But it put a lot of pressure, and pressure creates bad habits. So it doesn't just start in high school, like I said, it starts way younger, and that's where it started with me. I had pressure, and a lot of it, because if I didn't do this, it was, well, you didn't do this right, so you're going to do this now. Or it was, you didn't do this, so now this is the repercussions of it. There were times that the repercussions were a lot worse than others, but that's just how it was for me at that point. And that's where I lived at for a while. I said it started at 8. It didn't end until I was 27 years old. And it's because I didn't deal with it till I was 27 years old. And that I just want you to understand that's where it starts at. So take the pressure and the expectations, and you build that into, now let's say I'm 12, 13, 14 years old. The expectations build. At 14 years old, 14, 15 years old, I found out that my mom had breast cancer at 38. So I was 14, 15. I had 2 little brothers that I had to watch out for all the time, because I knew what was happening. There was a lot of days that expectation was tremendous, because not only that she had breast cancer, but my dad, he stayed with her 24/7. I mean, there's days that I would walk in the house. My little brothers wouldn't be there at the time because my grandparents would have them, but there would be times where I would walk in the house and she'd be laying on the couch and it would just be like, she's not alive. She couldn't respond to me. She couldn't say anything to me. There was no I love you out of that. It was literally, she had tubes hanging from her body constantly. So at 14 years old, you had to grow up fast, because I didn't realize the impact it was having on me, but I was also a freshman in high school. So the pressure of that and expectations of, hey, you got to do things that you're not normally supposed to do at 14-year-old. I didn't get to live the 14-year-old life, 15-year-old life, 16-year-old life, because I was already expected to do adult things, because we were put in a situation that we could not control. And that's where it comes to, if you're put into a situation that you cannot control, you have got to be able to trust somebody like Taylor, like Tiffany, like me, like some of the adults in the church, where you can go and express what's going on, no matter what it is. No matter what it is, it doesn't matter. You have to be able to do that, and you have to be willing to do that. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to do it, say a few things to make you feel better, because that's not how that works. Whether it's hateful, mean, whether it's nice and kind, it doesn't matter. You have to be able to express those things, because if you don't, they'll only do it. And that's where I'll move on to next, because those two things were high in my childhood, because I was still a child at the time. You know, you're not really a young adult until you're, 18, 19. You're not, you don't get out of your teens. But that was the expectation for me. I had to grow up quick. As a trauma for me was her finding out that she had breast cancer, because that's not something that just goes away over time. I mean, yes, she's 12 to 13 years in remission, but it could come back just like that. So that's stuff that you will have to deal with, and I didn't deal with it until, like I said, I was 27. There's a revolving door there, and when I say 27, you're going to understand it here shortly, because it gets very surreal. So at 15 years old, 16 years old, there's two paths you can go down. You can go down the path that leads to least resistant at that age. And least resistant is you want to fit in, you want to do what everybody else is doing, you want to walk that walk, you want to talk that talk, you want to go to this party, you want to hang out with this friend because they're doing something that you know for a fact, because I was raised in a home where I knew what was right and wrong. I was taught that, because that was an expectation for me to know, hey, you don't do this, you don't do this. So you can have that path where it's the least resistant path of that age. You can do whatever you want to, you can say whatever you want to as long as nobody sees, like nobody's around. Okay, it's cool. When somebody's around, you play the, well, I don't do that type of stuff. But what you do behind closed doors comes to light no matter what. There's nothing that gets shadowed away. It can come, like I said, happened at 16. It didn't come to light until I was 27. So it's important to understand that you have to, like I said, be able to express yourself to somebody that you can trust, and you know is going to do right by you at this age, because if you don't, you'll deal with it. But moving on, 16 years old, I went the path of least resistance. I did things behind closed doors that you couldn't fathom, if you want to know the truth. And I'll keep it as PG as I can, because some of you are not to that level yet, but there's things that happened to me that as a 16-year-old you couldn't understand. I had a cousin that thought it would be cool to do certain things in a room that is unspeakable, because he was bigger than me. He weighed more than I did. He could pressure me into doing whatever I wanted to do, because he knew if I went told what would happen. He knew that I didn't have the strength to stand up for myself. And that was extremely hard to deal with, because when you had somebody that you went through childhood with and went through high school with, and you went through your young adult years, and you thought they were everything you wanted them to be, and to know that you get pressured into doing stuff that you would never do in your entire life, all because you couldn't stand up for yourself. It hurts. It's a hurt that is beyond understanding. And that's something, when I say it's out of your control, if it's out of your control, you got to talk about it. I didn't say a word. I never told nobody until a few years ago. And it was extremely hard for me because I had to deal with it. I was embarrassed because I let it happen. I was embarrassed because of who it was. I was embarrassed because, like I said, I couldn't stand up for myself. If you want to know the truth, at this age, Hayden, he's not much bigger than I was. You know, and for somebody that was 6'2", 225 pounds to take advantage of you, it's extremely difficult. It makes your self-worth go down the drain. You have no self-worth. You don't know what it looked like to love yourself. You don't know what it looks like to have the Lord look down on you, because I was in church every day. There wasn't a day that I didn't come to this church. This is where I went to church as a youth. I've sat in this very room with 65 plus kids, wall to wall, and never got looked at because I didn't say a word about what was going on in my own life at that time. So we're going to move past that. Just know that if it's out of your control, find somebody you can trust and talk about it. Because if you don't, you're going to reap the consequences of what's going to happen. Fast forward, I'm probably 17 now. Let me rewind that real quick. I'm 15. I lost my virginity. Do y'all know what that is? Okay, at 15 years old. So I know what it's like. I know what it's like to do those types of things. I know what it's like to be put in a situation where you can't control it. I know what it's like to do things out of impulse because you think it's cool, because all your buddies talk about it, all your friends talk about it. It's not cool. It's not fun, and it only hurts worse when you get older. Move on from that. I had a serious girlfriend for 3 years. Like I said, I did that. We broke up, that type of deal. It was not a big deal to me at that point in time because I did whatever I wanted to behind closed doors. I was the kid everybody looked at and was like, man, that's a good kid. But behind closed doors, I wasn't. I literally did whatever I wanted to, as long as nobody seen, nobody said anything. I went to parties, I smoked, I drank, did whatever I wanted to. At 17 years old, it only impacted my life more. When I went to school, I was the athlete I was a starter on the baseball team. I did everything right in class. I never got in really any trouble. It was just, I was a cool kid. But when I went out on Saturday or I went out on Friday night, that wasn't the case. I walked a different walk. I talked a different talk. I did things that most people couldn't experience. So that was my high school years. I tried to be the fit-in kid. Did everything everybody else wanted to do because it was cool. It wasn't cool. It wasn't fun, because now that I look at it and look back on it, I wish I would have took the path that was more resistant, because it was the path that would have drawn me closer to the Lord. But in saying that, He has a plan and He has a story that He wants you to tell, and that's kind of where I am now. So I'm going to push past those years. I went to college. I played college baseball at a Christian college. So this is going to go a little further than y'all know, but you're going to have to look at this, because the stuff that impacted me in high school, impacted me at some of y'all's ages, would transition on. So I was in college, still doing whatever I wanted to. I went to a Christian college where we had Bible study Monday through Sunday. We did worship. I mean, it was the whole 9 yards. But on Friday and Saturday, we did whatever we wanted to. Gambled on the weekends, smoked, drank, did whatever we wanted to. There was nothing that we didn't do that involved Jesus Christ at all. The Lord was not the center of our life, because the center of our life was doing whatever made us happy at the time, which is extremely rough, because that was the path of least resistance. Moving on, I came back home. I met Lakin not long after I got back to Searcy. All was well. We had our struggles, yeah. I mean, we were on and off there for a couple of years, but I mean, we did a lot together. And finally, after a little stint, we got back together and asked her to marry her. Best decision of my life by far, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here. Truthfully, if it wasn't for her faith, I wouldn't be sitting on the stage, to be brutally honest. When we got married and we had Kinsley, and at the time, like I said, the Lord was not the center of our life. We were still doing things. We were having parties at our house with a six-month-old baby. I mean, it was stuff that we carried over throughout our lives. It kept building from a young age, and pressure expectations to being in high school, and the expectations there, the trauma that we had in our lives, it just kept building. But I married her, and I mean, this is where it comes into the fact of the pressure and expectations led me to a part where I lusted a lot. And lust is where it's not just physical. It's where you look at somebody and you imagine things to them that you would not do. Okay, that's what lust is. Lust is not a physical touch. That's not what lust is. Lust is, I'll put it to you like this. You have a picture of green grass and pretty flowers, okay, over here. And then you have a picture of what you're in on this side. Okay, if you're looking at this picture, trying to put yourself over there, that's lust. You have to recognize what you're in, see the good in it, see what the Lord's doing in it, and run with that. Because if you continue to look here, you're only going to imagine things that you can't have. So I built a lot of lust, especially towards the opposite sex. And like I said, I did a lot of just whatever I wanted to still. I hadn't dealt with the trauma that went on as a childhood. I still, did everything that I did in high school. I still drank, did all that. I still lusted. To be real honest, I even talked to women like I shouldn't have, because I was married. I was a married man. And in saying that, it only progressed through my younger years. Now, there's a point in time after Josie was born, and we were 23 and 25. So 25, Josie was born, and there was a lot of changes that needed to happen. We moved from where we were at. We started going to church more. But I'm going to put it to you like this. Just because you step in this building does not mean that you are interlined with what the Lord has for you. Because if you are not willing to step out of your comfort zone into what He has for you, you will dwell in the same circle that you had the entire time, no matter if you're in this building or not. This building does not solidify your faith. You can find your faith inside this building because these walls are built from love of Jesus Christ. But what you do outside of here, it's going to stay the same unless you bring Him outside of these walls. So that aspect didn't set with me at 25 years old. Just didn't. I came in, like I said, I was the cool cool cat. I came into church and did what I was supposed to do at church on Sundays and Wednesdays. And guess what? Friday and Saturday, still do whatever I wanted to. It's until he wakes you up with something that is so unexpected that you can't fathom, you'll realize what he's doing. At 27 years old, I got a wake-up call. We were having fun out on the lake, a bunch of my friends, a bunch of Lincoln's friends, and we got back to the car and we were headed home. Now, I knew at this point I had done wrong, okay? I did something that, if it wasn't for Jesus Christ dying on the cross for our sins, I'd go to hell, 100%. No doubt about it, because it says it in the Ten Commandments. And if it wasn't for him dying on the cross and saving my sins and allowing me to repent, I'd 100% be burned for the rest of my eternity. So I want you to understand that. If you're caught in something you can't get out of, he's going to get you out of it. Now, it's going to be a choice on you whether you want to do it or not. But he's going to allow you, and this was it. This was my wake-up call. We get to the car, we're driving home. Mind you, me, Lakin, and our 2 kids. She gets a message. And it says, I want you to understand, this is going to be extremely difficult, because I've not said this to anybody. Nobody even remotely, I mean, there's a few, but nobody knows the gist of what happened in this story. She gets a text message that says, hey, I believe a certain woman has had a kid, and your husband is the father of that child. I'm the husband. So I stepped out of my marriage because of the trauma I didn't deal with as a kid, y'all's age. It led to where I'm at now. I am 27. Mind you, I told you I'm going to come back to that number, 27. That's where I'm at right now. I'm 27 years old. My wife just got a message talking about how her husband could be the father of another child. If you only knew the heartbreak, because it wasn't necessarily heartbreak for her, but it was heartbreak for me because I knew what was coming. My world was crashing rapidly, at a rapid pace. It was saying, hey, it's time to wake up, because if you don't make the decision now, I'll take you away and you'll burn forever. What I want you to understand is when I say burn forever, if you've never read about hell, it's not a fairy tale. Because you can live in hell on this earth. Whether you like to recognize that or not, it happens. And it may not be to the extent, but it's close. The burning's surreal. The screams are real. The fire, it's real. And until you recognize that your world's coming to a crash, you won't know. But his wake-up call was there, and I had to deal with that. Like I said, the heartbreak wasn't so much for her as it was for me. Is I let her down. I let my family down. I let my 2 kids down that I already had, because I didn't know the outcome of what was going to happen. I didn't know if I was going to get to go home that night and tuck them into bed. I didn't know if I was going to get to wake up the next morning and take them to school. And it's all because of what I did as a child and a young teen that caused that. It caused that effect because I didn't deal with it at y'all's age. So that was my wake-up call into the fact of, if you don't follow me, this is what's going to happen. Come to find out that, which y'all all know, McKenna is my youngest daughter. I knew her mother is not sitting in this room, but her mother is sitting in this room. Because like I said, without her, it wouldn't be possible. There's 1,000 days where I sit in a car dealing with depression, with a pistol to my mouth, trying to figure out what my purpose was on this earth. Because I had made a mistake that I could not take back. I made a mistake that could not be hid behind closed doors. I made a mistake that he brought to light to wake me up and say, hey, you got to deal with some stuff. So this is my wake-up call to you, is if you're running down the path of least resistance, it's time to wake up. Because if you don't, I'm not saying Kenna is not a miracle, because she is. I'm not saying I would ever take that back in 1,000 years, because she's a child. She's a child of God. And he allows me to be her father, and he allows her to be her mother. And it's just, that's kind of where that sets at. But this is your wake-up call. If you continue to go down that path, there's going to be certain things happen to you that you're going to reap the consequences for it. So, dealing with that, I didn't deal with those things, and I should have. I should have dealt with the things that happened in high school, partying, drinking, having unmarital sex. That's just the cold hard truth about it. I know it's hard to talk about with young kids and teens. And it's a hard word. It's a hard word to deal with. But until you understand the consequences of doing that, or doing those things, really, you'll never know. I lived through hell for probably the time I turned 16 years old till I was 27 years old. I didn't deal with it. And now that I look back, that's the screams I've heard. That's the hell I recognized. The pressure, the expectations, the lust, the partying. I thought it was all fun, but it was all screams. Wake up. Wake up before it's too late. Wake up before it's too late. Because if you don't wake up, it will be too late. And if it wasn't for certain things happening because the Lord lined them up, it'll be too late. And he spoke to me in a different aspect once it happened. I was sitting, matter of fact, we found out, we still didn't go to church here at the time. I didn't come back to church here until I was 28 years old, after I left for college. I really didn't get into church much, but we were in a church after Josie was born, but 28 was my year to get back into church. So I come here one morning, the girls wanted to go to church with my mom and dad. We come here, did not say a word about what had happened. It's been probably, I don't know, a few days, weeks, something I can't really remember. They all ran together right then. But we stepped through the doors, and I knew right then that that day would change my life forever. Because at 11 years old, I went to church camp. I went to kids camp at y'all's age. I mean, at the age the girls are now, I went to kids camp. I gave my life to Christ at a young age. I got baptized at a young age. That's not to say you shouldn't do it, but you need to really recognize what that's doing, because I didn't until I called. I mean, I went to church that morning, did my thing. It was impactful. I'll never forget it. I cried at the altar for probably an hour and a half. Pastor Dane didn't even know who I was at the time, really. But if it wasn't for that man, I'm going to tell you something. Even at your age, if you can talk to him, I'd give my left leg to have him at 16, 17, 15, 14. Because even though he's older, he gets it. He understands. He knows what can happen and what will happen. He knows the temptations that come with being in high school or junior high. He gets it. So if it wasn't for him being able to trust in me that I could turn it around, and that's not to say I didn't make mistakes, because I can tell you this. I walked through this church for a year, and the devil knocked on my door again, said, hey, I'm not through with you yet. And I turned around and went right down the same path that I was already in before the Lord gave me a call. So that's something you need to take into an aspect too, is just because you give your life to Christ doesn't mean that He ain't gonna come knocking. It's whether you make the choice to follow the Lord or follow the devil. And in saying that, I mean, I turned around after a year being in this church, doing the things that, I thought I was supposed to do. He led me back down temptation, where I made some of the same mistakes I was making already. And then He gave me a second chance after He woke me up a second time and said, hey, I'm not going to give you nothing. This is it. This right here is your chance. Wake up. This is your chance. So after that, I knew then it was like, hey, you can't continue to walk the same path. I had to put up boundaries with people that I've known my entire life, that I thought were best friends, that I thought could influence my life in a different perspective. I had to put up boundaries with my parents, my little brothers. I had to put up boundaries with my wife because I couldn't deal with what was going on. And then finally, I was allowed to speak to somebody. And I'm not saying that the counselors are great or everything like that, but at this point, it was what I needed. He allowed me to express myself in a room and allowed me to find a place where I could speak without judgment. So that was kind of that point, is to just say, just because you give your life doesn't mean He ain't going to tempt you with everything He has to draw you back to where you were. If you don't do that, if you don't understand this. Like I said, I sat in this church for a year and did everything I was supposed to do, while still doing lusting, still texting, still talking, still drinking, still doing that type of stuff, because I then chose the path of least resistance. It's a choice, and it's whether you want to do it or not is going to be the issue. So after all that, I've been led and called, really, I feel like, and this is just me, I feel like I could sit in a room with an age full of young teens like y'all and really connect, because I know what it's like to be in high school and be led by peer pressure, be led by the group you want to so-called be in. But these activities that Taylor's doing, they weren't accessible at the time. I'm 30 years old. I graduated in 2013. You can do the math. That's a long time ago. Okay, that's a little about 12 years now. In 12 years, things have changed a lot. Now, we had stuff like that, but it wasn't accessible, really. I mean, you walked whatever path you wanted to walk, and He gave you a choice. So it's kind of a warning to you at this age. You can walk the path of least resistance and say, hey, this is cool, this is fun at the time, but really it's just a screen. It's just a fire. It's just hell calling, knocking on your door. And until you realize that the Lord is the only way, and until you realize that, until you get out of your comfort zone and you understand that it doesn't matter what they think about you, because they're not going to judge you when it's time to be judged. You're going to answer for the things you know. And if it's following the Lord, guess what? There's a lot less judgment that comes with that. Because in reality, there's a lot of good you can do. I'm not saying your good works are going to get you into heaven, but they're not going to go unnoticed. We're not set on this earth to just sit in a room and praise the Lord. We're set on this earth to find the lost. He didn't leave the 99 for no reason. We could all be the 99 in this room, and there could be somebody sitting in that parking lot right now with things that are unfathomed, and He will find that one. I was that one. He found me I was sitting in a car parked on the road in the middle of nowhere, cocked, ready to load. And he found them. If it wasn't for certain people, he found them. We're not here for no reason. Me, Laban, some of the adults in this church, Taylor, Tiffany, we're not here for our amusement. We're here because he called us to find the one, not the 99. You may be the one, you may be the one, you may be the one, y'all may be the one. And then it's for you to make the choice, and then you go find the one. That's our purpose on this earth. It's not to sit in this room and say, "Woo, we went to church on Wednesday night." It's to go outside these doors and know that it doesn't matter if they judge you or not, per your faith. It's your responsibility as a follower of Jesus Christ to find the lost. That is what you're here for. Doesn't matter what denomination you are. Denominations are man-made. They don't exist if it wasn't for man. You're not going to get to heaven, and he's not going to say, "Oh, we're your Church of Christ, you go down this street. No, you're Baptist, you go over here. You're Pentecostal." No. It's one church with one people. It's your objective and your responsibility to find those people. Because if you don't, to be real honest, you're not doing anything. And at this age, it starts now. Your influence is what draws the young teens of your day into this room. This room is powerful, but until you make the choice to draw them here, it's not going to work. There's a reason when I was in this room, there were 60 plus people. It's because we drew people here. Not necessarily everything was for the right reason, but they were here where they could be found. So that's something I want you to understand, and I'm fixing to close now because it's getting close to time. It's your objective to fill this room. It's not Taylor's objective to fill this room. That's not his responsibility. His responsibility is to put it into a perspective where you can understand and follow the Lord. It's your objective to find the people and get them in here. And that's what you have to understand. If you're going to follow Jesus Christ, it's your choice to get the people here. He'll do what he needs to do. So, outside of that, that's really my story. As a single person, individual, that was my story. I had a lot of trauma I had to deal with. I had expectations, pressure, just like you did. I did things just like y'all did. I was that guy. I was the cool kid when everybody's seen. Behind closed doors, I did whatever I wanted to, with whoever or whatever I wanted to. It didn't matter. And like I said, if you don't wake up now, you're going to pay the consequences for it. Whether it's an impact on your life or it's hell, that's the choice you're going to have to make. So you can walk down the path of least resistance, or you can walk down the path with a little resistance because it's the Lord on this knocking on that door saying, "Hey, you can find me in this. You can find me in this depression. You can find me in this stronghold I have." Okay? So outside of that, like I said, we're not here for your amusement. We're here for you so you can talk to us. We've been through what you've been through. Now you know. I don't tell you that to say, "Hey," I don't tell you, "Hey, come talk to me," because I just want to hear you talk. It's because I know what happens. I've been there and I've done it. There's nothing any of you sitting in this chair, you could say, "I've done the worst," and I could talk to 5,000. There ain't nothing you've done in that chair that I ain't done. Multiplied. That's why we're here. This is going to be an opportunity. I'm going to give you an opportunity because we're getting over time. If you want to make it right and get right, this is your time. This is your choice to turn to the other path. This is your chance. He's here. Every time I step in here,